Welcome to James Joyce's divine and delirious comedy Finnegans Wake. In this episode, number 23, we'll hear Irish-Canadian actor and my good friend and colleague Richard Harte performing pages 104 to 108 to begin Chapter 5 of Joyce's last novel. I'm Adam Seelig, the director of the reading you'll soon hear. For those of you in New York, join me on Thursday, June 11th at Time and Space Limited in Hudson, New York, for Joyce Cage, an evening featuring excerpts from One Little Goat's Finnegans Wake film series paired with Wake-inspired songs by John Cage. The songs will be performed by soprano Jacqueline Hopping, accompanied by John Cage Trust Executive Director Jeffrey Leppendorf, who will also join me in conversation. It promises to be a great night, so come if you can. For information on and tickets to this event, please visit One Little Goat Theatre Company's website. And for those of you around Dublin on Tuesday, June 16th, the Bloomsday Film Festival will be screening our complete film of Finnegans Wake Chapter 4 at the James Joyce Centre. For details and links, please visit the Bloomsday Film Festival website or www.onelittlegoat.org. Finnegans Wake is a production of One Little Goat Theatre Company. One Little Goat is filming and recording all 17 chapters, roughly 30 hours, of Joyce's Finnegans Wake before live audiences in various locations, screening and releasing them along the way with the aim of completing the entire book for its 90th birthday, May 4th, 2029. One Little Goat Theatre Company is an official charity in Canada and the United States. To help us produce this first-of-its-kind filmed reading series, of which we've filmed 8 chapters so far with 9 more to go, please visit onelittlegoat.org to make a charitable donation. Your donation enables us to bring this production to audiences and helps support the outstanding artists who make it possible. To be the first to hear about our live tapings, events, and screenings, please join our mailing list, also at onelittlegoat.org. Chapter 5 of Finnegans Wake turns to the female protagonist of the novel, Annah Livia Plurabelle, or ALP, focusing on her as River, the River Liffey, as spouse of H.C. Earwicker, and as author of a consequential letter that promises to rehabilitate HCE's much maligned reputation. It's Annah to the rescue, or in the words of the previous chapter, quote, the solid man saved by his sillied woman. If I had to give this chapter a title, and if the title hadn't already been taken by Joe Cocker, that roostery English blues singer, I'd call it The Letter. And if I went a step further to give the chapter subheadings, they would be the paper of the letter, the envelope of the letter, the message of the letter, the letters of the letter, etc. This famous letter is found by a hen named Belinda, and she finds it in a litter, a dump, in dirt, under sod, or to bring back that word we often heard in Chapter 1, in a tip, i.e. a trash heap. This literary letter appears to be written by Annah, but even that, as so often happens in the Wake, is open to debate, because there's a mystery that haunts this chapter right up to its conclusion, and that is, who wrote the letter? Was it in fact Annah? And if not her, who? Chapter 5 opens with a glorious and playful invocation of Annah Livia Plurabelle that merges the Quran with the Bible. Every surah in the Quran begins with, in the name of Allah the All-Merciful. And the Lord's Prayer, one of the Bible's greatest hits, goes like this, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Chapter 5's opening line combines them. Quote, in the name of Annah the All-Merciful, the ever-living, the bringer of plurabilities, hallowed be her eve, her sing-time sung, her will be rung, unhemmed as it is uneven. The chapter then introduces us to Annah's famous letter. Although it's described as, quote, her untitled Mamma Festa, close quote, the letter in fact has gone by hundreds of names at many different times. Edmund Epstein counts 312 of them in total, with most referring to the love and marriage of our flawed hero, HCE, and his long-suffering spouse, ALP. One thing that Richard Harte and I regularly look for in the wake, especially when approaching an epic catalog like this one, is a rising and falling movement in any given phrase, sentence, and paragraph, because Finnegans Wake itself is, as we've seen over several chapters, a sublime and ridiculous evocation of the cyclical rise and fall of humanity. Here, for example, is one of the names for the letter appearing early in this list. Quote, "Nickel down Duddy gun and a Irish Sir Cannon," close quote, with a downward motion, nickel down, followed naturally by the upward, a Irish Sir Cannon, in this case suggesting investiture or a knighthood ceremony in which the subject kneels, or nickels, down in order to receive honor, paradoxically lowering himself to become exalted. The name immediately preceding this one lifts us up. Quote, Annah Stessa's rise to notice. And these are just two of the 312 inventive names for Annah's manifesto, of which I'll point out just a few more. Quote, "From the rise of the Dutch Republic to the fall of the Postille." Another up and down, in this case contrasting the rise of the Dutch Republic with the fall of the Bastille, mixed with a healthy dose of alcoholic terms in light of HCE and ALP's identity, one of their many identities, as publicans of the Mullingar Inn in Chapel Lizard, hence public, which also hints at HCE's sin-tinged stutter, and postille echoing a pot still for distilling whiskey. Several names for the letter call out HCE and ALP's initials. For example, quote, "He can explain," close quote, which gives us HCE, and quote, "Alolosha Popofets," close quote, which yields ALP. A simple three-word name, quote, "the suspended sentence," could refer to the suspended judicial sentence for HCE's alleged sins, while also applying to Finnegans Wake itself, given that the novel suspends a sentence between the end and the beginning, famously ending mid-sentence and beginning with its continuation. The R in the novel's opening word, River Run, remains uncapitalized for good reason. For more observations on this evocative name for the letter, I'll link in the transcript for this episode to a terrific Finnegans Wake blog called, fittingly, The Suspended Sentence. And while you may end up with your own favorite name for the letter in this inventive list, I'll share mine. Quote, "Of the two ways of opening the mouth." Not only does this entry reference the Book of Opening the Mouth from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, suggesting ancient rituals of death and afterlife, falling and rising, but to my ear, it's a perfect encapsulation of what this entire novel achieves, remarkably, on every single page, and that is an uncanny ability to say two often contradictory things at once, to say it and its opposite, to speak, paradoxically, out of both sides of the mouth. From the very first word of the novel's very title, Finnegans, I hear at least two ways of opening the mouth, with fin suggesting the finality of an end, and again suggesting again. The former a fall, the latter a rise. To end again? We haven't even read the full title, let alone the novel, and Finnegans Wake has already shown us two ways of opening the mouth. The final name given to ALP's letter in this multi-page catalog is a breathless run-on that summarizes her defense of HCE against a conspiring public that has fabricated salacious accusations about HCE vis-a-vis two girls in Dublin's Phoenix Park and Chapel Lizard. And in the course of her full-throated defense of her husband, Annah slings some mud of her own, smearing the two girls or young women in this slanderous scenario as, quote, "a pair of sloppy sluts," close quote, and ends by mentioning their raincoats, a sartorial detail that associates the two allegedly disreputable young women with the two togaed women portrayed in Dublin's traditional coat of arms, I'll post an image of the Dublin coat of arms in the podcast transcript because I think you'll get a kick out of seeing it in this context. Following our live audience's deserved applause for Richard's delivery of this epic sentence suspended over 3 pages, the text presents us with a new professorial character who appears to analyze Annah's letter as if it were a rare and ancient manuscript, the way a paleographer might. Where some see mere litter, the hen finds a letter, and where the hen picks and pecks out a letter, the paleographer sees a scrap of literature. Like the man on the dump in Wallace Stevens's poem, Chapter 5 of Finnegans Wake returns literature to litter while transforming litter into literature. Quote, "The proteiform graph itself is a polyhedron of scripture. There was a time when naive alphabeters would have written it down." This is how our paleographer's assessment of the written specimen begins, and after a full paragraph of this polysyllabic and hilarious scholarly pretension, a voice from the text, as if heckling our speaker, butts in with the question everyone wants to know. Quote, "Who wrote the darn thing anyhow?" Close quote. Up until now, I assumed it was ALP. This question of who wrote the letter now becomes the mystery that Chapter 5 attempts to solve. And that, the text reassures us, will require some forbearance. Quote, "Remember, patience is the greatest thing." Before we hear the opening pages of Chapter 5, I want to acknowledge how lucky we were to film and record this chapter at the Thomas Fisher Rare Book Library at the University of Toronto. Chapter 5 might be the bookiest of chapters in this already bookish book that is Finnegans Wake, so a library naturally is a great location. But a library with as deep and broad and, true to its name, rare a collection as the Fisher, well, that is the ideal location. It also doesn't hurt that the Fisher Library is architecturally stunning. Torontonians will know the Fisher's exterior as the head of the peacock, so to speak, at U of T's Robarts Library, while others of you may have seen its interior in Star Trek Discovery, where it played the part of the Eternal Archive, an infinite library safeguarding the secrets of the universe. And I'll post a link to that Star Trek episode in this episode's transcript. I want to thank librarians John Shoesmith and David Fernández at the Fisher for opening their doors to One Little Goat for our live taping of this chapter, and for allowing us to pull and display 100 books and manuscripts that relate to the novel in general and this chapter in particular, including a 500-year-old Geneva Bible and Quran, a 1927 copy of Transition magazine where the opening pages of Chapter 5 were first published, and 2 first editions of Finnegans Wake. The first, a copy in mint condition, the second, a heavily annotated copy, annotated by media maven and visionary Marshall McLuhan, which is another reason our shoot of Chapter 5 at Fisher was beshert, or meant to be. Marshall McLuhan's archives are housed at Fisher, and McLuhan was a lifelong reader and devotee of Finnegans Wake. His insights into the novel, I can tell you from having looked at some of those annotations in his first edition copy, are absolutely brilliant. For example, as those of you who listened to episode 2 of this podcast series might recall, McLuhan read Joyce's text as a verbal fugue, noting that back in the opening sentence, "River run past Eve and Adams, from swerve of shore to bend of bay, brings us by a commodious vicus of recirculation back to Howth Castle and environs," sounds like Bach, as in Johann Sebastian, and Bach is German for brook, which is a stream or kind of river. So this river running back or backwards is also a river running Bach or Bachwards, a literary fugue. The Gutenberg Galaxy, McLuhan's book of 1962, examines the effect of the printing press on human thought and experience. McLuhan's contention is that Johannes Gutenberg's invention in the 1400s shifted literature from an oral medium to a visual one, from ear to eye, and consequently from communal to individual. Before the printing press, 99 people wanting to access a text would gather around one person to hear them recite it, because that one person, whether a scholar, rabbi, priest, imam, monk, etc., was the only literate one with access to that scroll. Today, thanks to Gutenberg's nifty invention, all 99 people can read it on their own. So our experience of texts and literature since the printing press transitioned from oral, audible, and communal to visual, silent, and solitary. What McLuhan found remarkable in Finnegans Wake, as well as in the unpunctuated writing of Gertrude Stein and other modernists, is literature's return from eye back to ear, because the Wake not only explores the medium of print deeply and irreverently, but through its dream language demands to be heard. In the process, individual readers become communal listeners. And here we are, dear audience, about to hear Richard Harte's reading/performance of Finnegans Wake. Quote, "Take breath and read it with the ears, as I always wish to be read, and my verse comes all right." These are the words of the poet and priest Gerard Manley Hopkins, quoted in the Gutenberg Galaxy by McLuhan, who goes on to compare the writing of Hopkins with that of Joyce. Quote, "Joyce never tired of explaining how in Finnegans Wake the words the reader sees are not the words that they will hear. As with Hopkins, the language of Joyce only comes alive when read aloud." Close quote. It reminds me of another of Joyce's comments on the Wake. Quote, "If anyone doesn't understand a passage, all they need do is read it aloud." Close quote. Of course, even then, there's no guarantee we will understand every word, since a certain amount of bewilderment or mystery is fundamental to any dream or dream language, but I can guarantee we'll have lots of fun along the way, together. That was certainly the case with our live audience at Fisher Library, including, by the way, relatives of Marshall McLuhan, gathered on October 21st, 2024, to hear and see Richard Harte read/perform James Joyce's Finnegans Wake, Chapter 5. Here are the opening pages of that chapter, from page 104, line 1, to page 108, line 36.
In the name of Annah, the all-merciful, the ever-living, the bringer of plurabilities, hallowed be her eve, her sing-time song, her reel be run, unhemmed as it is uneven. Her untitled Mamma Festa, memorializing the Most Highest, has gone by many names at disjointed times. Thus we hear of the Augusta Angustissimost for old sea beastius' salvation, Rockabill Booby in the wave trough, here's to the relics of all decencies, Anastessa's rise to notice, nickel down, Duddy Gun, and arise, Sir Cannon, my golden one and my silver wedding, Amordi Tristam and icy Cecil, saith the sawyer till a stream, hick dick dope dope et tu mihi mihi. Buy birthplate for a bite. Which of your yesterdays mean you tomorrow? Oh, begun the Hebrew were hit Waterman the brand. Arcs in his ceiling, flea chinks on the floor. Rebus to Hibernicus, the crazier letter. Groans of a Britoness, Peter Peopler picked a plot, the pitch is poplin. An apology for the big. Some such noun as husband or husboat or hosebound is probably understood, for we also have the Pluther plethoric, my hoons booed hands bad, the journey to Portugal gone, and he never has the hour. Ought we to visit him? For Arc Caesar, Cleopatra's needlework fixturing Alberham on the Sahara with the cumin of the camels and the parlour maids of Egypt. Cock in the pot for father, Placiad Vestre, a new cure for an old clap, where potentos rego grander, how I'd wish I was a geese. Gettelnetti, thrust him not. When the myrtles of Venice played the Blocus' line, to plunge me high, he waves children on friends. Ormond's Kill visits Amen Mart. E'en though I a granny a be, he would fain me cuddle. 20 of chambers, weighty 10 beds, and a one-seat room, I led the life. Through the boxer cocks are rising in the house with the golden stairs. The following fork, he's my old Jerusalem and I'm his Poe, the best in the West. By the stream of Zem under Zigzag Hill, the man that made his mother in the Marbury train try our tall on a taub. The log of Annie to the base all. Nopper tipped a nappy wink to his naughty little dancy girls. Purrs Earl, the king of Earl birds, and Timmy or Minna lisp of an exterior monologue. Drink to him, my jockey, and don't be mine thy winnowing sheet. I ask you to believe I was his mistress. He can explain. From Victrolia Nuance to Albert Nuance. Da's a daisy, so give me your handsel too. What barbarous done to a barrel organ before the rank tank and bomb tail. Husk be at mortal. What Jumbo made her jealous, and what Annah said to him. Ophelia's cold prince, here hushty Hublin, my old Dutch. I am older nor the rogues among which I slips, and he calls me his jewel of a yesha. Suppose a ventriloquist marries a corpse. Laps for fins this funny coon's week. How the buckling shot that rush in January. Look to the lady. From the rise of the Dodge public to the fall of the pot still. Of the two ways of opening the mouth. I have not stopped water where it should flow, and I know the 29 lanes of a Trente. The Tartar of Tory Island treats Galatia like his milch cow. From Abbygate to Coe Alley through a lift in the Lude. Smocks for their graces, and me on for them clodshoppers. How to pull a good horoscope, even when old Sire is dead to the world. In the gleam of Waterloo. Faith, he succeeded to my aspirations. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. My skin appeals to 3 senses, and my curly lips demand column kisses. Gage Street on a Craney savings. Them lads made a tree and a battle washers, and they thought he's a jewet of dears. In my lord's bed, by one whore went through it. Mum, it is all over. Cowboy ride by 12-acre terrace in the unique estates of a Mexican. He gave me a thou, so I serve him with thee. Of all the wide torsos in all the wild glen, oh, Donna, white Donna, is you to me cry. I'm the stitch in his basque side, you'd be not without mum, to keep the huskies off the hustings and picture pets from lifting shops. Norsker Torsker finds the paddle. He pursed me here with the ardour of a ton of burks. A boob was weeping, this mower was reaping. Oh, Lachlan, up from the pit of my stomach, I swish you the white of the morning. Anglo-Andine medleys from Tommany Moor. The great Polynesian entertainer exhibits Ballantine brochures with the link of natures. The mimic of Megneg and the Mackeys. Entered as the lastest pigtail, and my poor idical at Stitchener's Hall, Sigfield Follies and or a gentle Ohm's faux pas. See the first book of Jealousy's Pessum, the suspended sentence. A pretty brick story for child-sized heroes. As low our sleep, I knew I'd got it in me, so it settles that. Thunderbolt Captain Smith and La Belle Sauvage, Pocahontas, way for wet weak relicans, Duchka Marianne, the last of the Thingalians. It was me egged him on to the Stork Exchange and lent my dutiful face to his customs. Chills on their China mixing, picked me up Peters. Lumpty-tum-tumpty, had a big fall, pimp. Measly ventures of 2 lice and the fall of fruit. The folks' family interior. If my spread eagles wasn't so tight, I'd loosen my corsets on that bunch of Maggie straps. Hallelujah, Popafets, and how he catch me eye. Seen apples and thin dyed. I beg you to believe, from loving mother, Fine's fault was no felon, exalt delvin renter life. The flash that flies from Muggy's eyes has set me hair on fire. His is the house that mouth made. Divine views from back to the front. Abe to stairs took Isaac Newton till Bram talked in common sex. And nibble at Eve will that bowel relieve. All for guineas, sounds and compliments libidus. 7 wives awake a week. Ariane and Berber Blut. Amy licks porter while Huffy chops seeds. A brace of umbrellas or a triple of canes. Butter, bust. from the Manor Lord Hove to the Mrs. O'Malley's, and from the dames to their sames, many festoons for the colleagues on the green. An outstanding back, and an excellent half-centre if called on. As tree is quick and stone is white, so is my washing done by night. First and last, only true account all about the honorary Mearsu Earwicker LSD and the snake, Nuggets, by a woman of the world who only can tell naked truths about a dear man and all his conspirators, how they all tried to fall and putting it all around Luke Lizard about privates, Earwicker, and a pair of sloppy sluts, plainly showing all the unmentionability, falsely accusing about the raincoats. The proteiform graph itself is a polyhedron of scripture. There was a time when nath alphabeters would have written it down the tracing of a purely deliquescent recidivist, possibly ambidextrous, snub-nosed probably, and presenting a strangely profound rainbow in his or her occiput. To the hardily curiousing entomophilost, then, it has shown a very sex mosaic of nymphosis, in which the eternal chimera hunter Oreolopus, now fond of sugars, then leaf of salts, the sensory crowd in his belly, coupled with an eye for the good's truth, bewildered, blissed by their night effluvia, with guns like drums and fondlers like forceps, perquistellates his Vanessas from floor to floor. Somehow this sounds like the purest Caduleune, wherein our modern asseration of our Lord is rich. Oh, so herew from us him in a kitternot darkness, by hazard and worn rolls arreared, we must grope on till 0 hour, like poor algae hours as we are, would we solve out of moments for our eyesore today. Amusing though not, but closer inspection of the bordereau would reveal a multiplicity of personalities inflicted on the documents, or document, and some prevision of virtual crime or crimes might be made by anyone unwary enough before any suitable occasion for it or them had so far managed to happen along. In fact, under the closed eyes of the inspectors, the traits featuring the chiaroscuro coalesce, their contrarieties eliminated. In one stable, similarly, somebody, as by a providential warring of hard shaker with housebreaker, and dram drinker with rethinker, our social something bowls along bumpily, experiencing a jolting series of prearranged disappointments down the long lane of it's as semper as ox house humper, generations, more generations, and still more generations. Say, Brown Lousador, who in all Hegel wrote the darn thing anyhow? Erect, be seated. Mount back against the party wall, below freeze a grade. By the use of quill or style, with turbid or pellucid mind, accompanied or the reverse by mastication, interrupted by visit of seer to scribe, or of scribe to sight, atwixt 2 showers or a tossed of a trike, rained upon or blown around by a right-down regular racer from the soil, or by a 2-paned whittlewit laden with the lute of learning. Now, patience. And remember, patience is the great thing. And above all things else, we must avoid anything like being or becoming out of patience. Good plan used by worried business folk who may not have had many momentums to master Kung's doctrine of the Miang or the proprietary codistruces of Tarpri Mustimus, is just to think of all the sinking fund of patience possessed in their conjoint names by both brothers Bruce, with whom are incorporated their Scotch spider and Elberfell's calculating horses. If, After years upon years of delving in ditches dark, one tub-thumper more than others, Kinnahoon or Cahanan, Giardarna or Mere Meason and Unger, has got up for the darn all same purpose of reassuring us, with all the barber in the carriagey house, that our great ascendant was, properly speaking, 3 syllables less than his own surname. Yes, less. That the ear of Finn Wicker aforetime was the trademark of a broadcaster, with Wicker local jargon for an ace's patent. Here, calls, everywhere. Then, as to this radio-oscillating epipistle, to which cotton, silk, or samite, coal, gall, or brick dust we must ceaselessly return, whereabouts exactly at present, in Siam, Hell, or Tophet, under that glorious old which plays tour-a-loop with us in this Ludens cove of our cagacity, is that bright so-and-such to slip us the dinkum oil? Naysayers, we know. To conclude purely negatively from the positive absence of political odia and monetary requests, that its page cannot ever have been a pen product of a man or woman of that period or those parts, is only one more unlooked-for conclusion leaped at, being tantamount to inferring from the non-presence of inverted commas, sometimes called quotation marks, on any page, that its author was always constitutionally incapable of misappropriating the spoken words of others.
That was Richard Harte reading the opening pages of Chapter 5 from Finnegans Wake, recorded live at the Fisher Rare Book Library in Toronto on October 21st, 2024. Join us for episode 24 in a fortnight for a special interview with Berkeley scholar Nina Begush on her unusual use of Finnegans Wake to shape artificial intelligence. And join us 2 weeks later for episode 25 for Richard Harte's continuation of Chapter 5. In the meantime, to be sure you don't miss the episode, why not follow or subscribe to this podcast? For more on One Little Goat's Finnegans Wake project, including transcripts of this podcast and the complete films of chapters 1, 2, and 3, visit our website at onelittlegoat.org. And to hear about upcoming performances and screenings, join our mailing list also on our website. One Little Goat Theatre Company is a non-profit, artist-driven, registered charity in the United States and Canada that depends on donations from individuals to make our productions, including this one, possible. If you're able, please make a tax-deductible donation through our website, www.onelittlegoat.org. Finnegans Wake is made possible by Friends of One Little Goat Theatre Company and the Emigrant Support Programme of the Government of Ireland. Thank you for your support. And thank you to the artists for this episode. Richard Harte, sound by William Bembridge, stage management by Sandi Becker, directed by yours truly, Adam Seelig. Music arranged and performed on the piano by me, with Tyler Emond on bass and Jinu Isac on drums, recorded at Ghost Town Studio in Toronto. A big thanks to John Shoesmith, Special Collections Librarian, to David Fernández, Head of Rare Books and Special Collections, and to their colleagues at the Fisher Rare Book Library at the University of Toronto, as well as to our wonderful live audience. Thank you to the team at the Irish Consulate in Toronto, and thank you to Production Consultants Cathy Murphy and Andrew Moodie. Thank you for listening.